My question is about the segregated mental health services. I wanted to ask, isn't that a direct result of the way modern education is structured? You know, we have this, especially the higher education. The students are forced to have this, to go into this narrow specialization as they go further into their education, and they're forced to just uh, hunker or get trapped into this narrow field. Should we not try to rethink that in order to move forward with integrated services?
What a smart question. The segregation that we see in services is often reflected in the divisions that we have between professions and between parts of the system. And I hope what you've seen today is our stressing the need and the opportunities for integration. You've heard about how do we integrate medical services, good primary care with behavioral health services. You know, how do we integrate acute services that you may have to use hospital for with community services. That kind of integration is important. Bill Anthony, that Scott has referenced a couple of times, used to describe psychiatric rehabilitation as an amoeba. He would say, you know, we're kind of like this amoeba squidging along, and when we come across something that we can use, we kind of envelop it and swallow it and make it our own. And so that's how psychiatric rehabilitation is proceeded. Some of you that heard Kathy's presentation about motivational interviewing and cognitive behavioral treatment, it's another way that we bring together things that weren't necessarily built together but have a lot of overlap and utility. I think we need to get really smart at cross-training, at integration, at interdisciplinary teams, and at incorporating the learning that's available from all kinds of fields into this work. Anything you guys want to add?
I think the fact that you have so many different disciplines here means that you have people that you can maybe connect with and talk to and pick their brains and not stick in your own little silo, but sort of branch out and use things from different fields.
Actually, you're exactly right. Historically, I think that education has been siloed, and I'm getting a sense that we're moving away from that, and that we're beginning to think about holistically, treating people holistically in our schooling systems, in our medical schools, in our social work schools, and certainly for the past 40 years in psych rehab, we thought about treating people holistically, and I think people are catching on to what we've been thinking for a while.
You know, the most in the United States today, I think it's still true that the most common combination of dual boards for physicians, you know, physicians who are certified experts in particular areas, the two most common, and some are in one, some are in multiple, but physicians who have two, the most common combination of two is psychiatry and either internal medicine or family practice, something like that, because we're recognizing in medicine that if you're going to do good internal medicine, good family practice, that knowing some things about behavioral health is really critical. And psychiatrists increasingly recognize that if they're going to really treat the person well, they need to know more about physical health care, and so dual boarding in those areas is really pretty common these days.
Most important question. Can people with mental illness lead normal lives? I know, and whether you stated it or not, it's in our minds. This is what it is that we are wanting to know. Number two, can mental illness be cured? No, I'm not looking for the answer. This is the question. Right, but yes, your answer is you took away. And I like this interaction, right? Because we are now speaking plain language. We are not speaking to one another. And so I want you to react. And you said no. So learned that no, it cannot be cured. But we can redefine it. And there's the answer. And what did they tell us today? It's a disability. It's a disability like any other disability. So it's the way we look at it. We are not looking for a cure to disabilities which are incurable. So if it cannot be cured, we haven't lost all hope. We have just said, change direction. Okay, let's accept that it cannot be cured. Let's move on. And so the way forward is, no, it cannot be cured, but there is a lot we can do. And what the first question was, can people with mental illness lead normal lives? And all of you said yes. And of course the answer is yes. But it's more complex. But yes, the simple answer is, let's start from that. Let's start from the conviction that they can lead normal life. Let's not reject them, let's not lock them up, let's not, do other things, unprofessional things with them. The third question was, can we learn from the US experience? All right. But maybe, a lot of you are saying yes, but, or do we need to modify it? We need to modify. Everybody, we are all on the same page now, right? Or do we reject everything which is Western and we reinvent the wheel? Right? We have to ask that question. We are sort of evaluating, thinking of our answer. So the answer that you're telling me is that we have a lot to learn from the US experience, right? So this was a very useful exercise. They are our seniors, they are ahead of us. And so there's a lot to learn. Question number 4 was, what is the state of mental health treatment in Pakistan? And where do we want to take it? Very important question. And so we heard a little bit, but I need to dwell upon it because, we want to reinforce it a little bit. We have 400 psychiatrists in Pakistan for 200 million people. And our access has been that if anybody suffers from mental illness, they should seek attention from a psychiatrist. They should go to a psychiatrist. And that's still what it is. Somebody may say the problem is there aren't enough psychiatrists, and that is correct. There aren't enough. 400 psychiatrists can't serve 200 million people. But that's not what we are talking about today. That's a different problem that has to be addressed. What we are talking about today is that the treatment of mental illness has to be done by more than psychiatrists. That is what we are talking about today, that what Dr. Nazila said, we have been practicing the medical model. And we want to go away from the medical model, and we are all talking about, Tony is saying, integrated services. So what we want is integrate the psychiatrist and the physician and the psychologist and a whole lot of other people, and only then can we treat mental illness. If we've gotten that message across, we've begun to start the dialogue that we want to start. So then what we have to understand, what is this we are talking about if we are not talking about the medical model? What is not the medical model? And since morning till evening, this is what we have been trying to explain. What is not the medical model is rehabilitation. And so we'll go into that, because now I've got a little bit more time. I can talk for hours about this. So I'm constraining myself. I'm limiting myself because I've got your attention, right? We have to. We are in a dialogue with one another. I want you to react to what I'm saying. So before I go into it, let me go to the fifth question. The fifth question is our culture and religion an impediment? Right? People have raised that. They've raised the thing is this, are we, what are we as a nation? Are we ready for this type of thing? It's all right for the Americans to do it, but we are Pakistanis. This doesn't work for us. Why? Because we have a different culture, joint family system, look at all the religion and, peers, fakirs and jinns and all of that. So, and I'll give you that answer before I go back to rehabilitation. Our culture is not an impediment. Our religion is not an impediment. In fact, it is a strength. We want to go away believing that we have a strength. We have tools that many people in the world may not have. Two things that we want to address. Number one, family. That's a strength. And we've been talking about family the whole day. What is the role of the family? I'm not going to repeat it, but all we've been saying is that because we have this family, yes, there are weaknesses to be overcome, but it's a strength. And religion, that is an even bigger strength. And we will talk about it, and in fact, Tony didn't realize it, but all the time he was talking about Islam. And I will explain, right? I will use his words. So let's go back to rehab. Tony said, rehab is a result of concern for others. This is the statement of the conference. Write it down in your notebooks and understand what that means. Rehab is a result of concern for others. Are we concerned about others? Then rehab should be simple for us. And yet, we have so many problems. Unemployment and poverty and no law and order, whole lot of other issues. We can't make ends meet. But are we concerned for our neighbor? Are we concerned for those who are mentally ill? Only then can rehabilitation take place as a society. Pakistan and Pakistanis have the record of being the most giving people. Philanthropy, you take anything. Number one, there is an absence of government. And so it is up to us. And we have risen to the occasion and we give freely of our money, of our time, and of our concern. So, therefore, that is a plus. This is how the US did it. In people in the US, they said we have to look after the people who are mentally ill. We have to look after the people with disability. So, I think that we have all the raw material. We have all the raw material to deal with this. Now, so what else did Tony say? He said, treat people with respect and compassion. These are the takeaways from. And so what is rehab? This is what we are. What is rehab? This is what rehab is. Why? Why should we treat people with respect and compassion? Not because we want to be kind to them, but because this will empower them. This is what rehab is. Empowering people, giving them confidence, giving them hope. What else did we hear? He said, everybody has the capacity to get better. Write this down. I mean, these are things to really take away from this conference. This is simple. I know this. And this is Islam. This is what we are told by our religion. This is, so I'm saying, we already know this. Whether we practice it or not, that's a different matter. That's not the fault of Islam if we don't practice it. All right? And he said, do not take away hope from people. So the crux of rehabilitation is, how do we handle hope? That's the crux of it. Giving hope to people, number one. Number two, not taking it away from them. So then, here's what rehab is. Again, another statement from Tony. He said, the soft factors account for 2/3 of outcomes. This is what we are interested in. Outcomes mean end result. If we do something, is there going to be a better result than we are having now? Why don't we practice the medical model and continue to do that? Why don't we get more psychiatrists? Because there are non-medical methods which it has been proven are 2/3 of the treatment. I have been saying for so many years that at the recovery house, the medicine is 30% of the treatment. And he has confirmed it. The medicine is 30% of the treatment. Now, I don't want to minimize medicine. Without medicine, you will not get well. Let there be no misunderstanding about this, how important it is. But it's 30%. What is the other 70%? So what is the other 70%? Kathy told us that, if you were listening. She said, identify. You start with identifying, do we have a problem here? How do you identify? And she used so we have to get technical over here. CBT, DBT. Cognitive behavioral therapy. So now these are tools, these are skills to be handled by professionals. But they have nothing to do with medicine. That's what I want to emphasize. So non-medical treatment is scientific. It's not just talking. Don't misunderstand. So that's what we want to sort of say. We're not sort of saying, just talk your way through. Proven methods and tools and skill. And she said, normalizing things, bringing them to normality. How long will it take? All these things. Establishing timelines, right? Establishing goals. Do goal planning. Goal planning is not for everyone. It is a professional tool. Goal planning is magic in the hands of professionals. She said, do motivational interviewing. Now, this is something to be addressed by the professionals. All I'm telling you, the reason I'm telling you and repeating this to you and that you understood what she was saying is, you may not know what motivational interviewing is. She has explained what motivational interviewing is. You may still not know it. But these are all tools which will help. So it's not just a question of, I'll just talk my way through this thing. And these tools help with managing stress, right? So all of this is very technical and very specific. And we also, so to the extent that you could absorb that the non-medical side, this is what I'm now, and Recovery House incidentally practices this and more. So we have a lot of tools in our array. We have a lot of things that we can do which are all non-medical. And we cannot do without the medical. Let's talk about something else which we didn't talk about enough. But you raised the question. This is your concern. Stigma. We are all aware of this elephant in the room, and it's called stigma. And it comes in the way of treatment. So how do we deal with stigma? And there are two things relating to stigma. And I have to sort of see what. The first thing is, and we learned this, I learned this. This is something I learned from you today, which I did not know before. Stigma is not a problem of the working class in Pakistan. Stigma is a problem of the middle class and the elite. It should have been something that I should know. But you told me, you told us this. Now that's an amazing thing. The working class, the lower class are not concerned about stigma. So we have the majority of people for whom stigma is not a problem. We talk so much about stigma as a big thing, but it's a minority who worry about it, who talk about it, who hide things because of it. The general public says, I'm not well. It's as simple as that. There is no identity, they have no sort of status to protect, and they have nothing to hide. These people who are not educated have the right attitude. So they have overcome this big hurdle to treatment. So let's not worry that much about stigma. It's the problem of the elite. We have to worry about, we have to satisfy them. But it's a smaller problem than we make of it. A lot of the people sitting here, their problem might be stigma if there was a family member. But we are not the majority, right? And somebody asked me in the recovery house, and I told them, you've come here, you're stigmatized. I told them. Oh my God, they said, what are we going to do about it? And I said, it's very simple. Act normally. That's it. The answer to stigma is, this is what they said, whether you heard it or not. Do you have a job? Do you have housing? That's it. If you have a job, and if you have your independent living, and if people say you're mentally ill, well, what's the difference between you and me? You have a job, I'm looking after myself, I'm leading my life. So overcoming stigma is behaving normally. whatever that means. I don't know what normal is. That's something else. That's another discussion altogether. So now, are we going away with a clear understanding that stigma is not the problem? That stigma should be overcome, but the way of overcoming is not to hide it under the carpet, not to bury it, lock it up in the closet. That is the last thing we should do if you have the courage to do it. And if it's timing, okay, you can hide it. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to advertise it in, the newspaper. When you're ready for it, you'll talk about it. It is, when can I behave normally? So, how are we doing for time, Doctor? Just a few more minutes? All right. So now, let's go to what we heard from our friends in conclusion. 4 things they said to us, right? Firstly, integrated services which are better than segregated services, right? That is what they are telling us. They are telling us we want to leave behind 4 important things for you. And what that means is not just integrating psychiatrists and physicians and psychologists and that, no, beyond that. 2 more things: employment and housing. We have to integrate, so part of the soft services is making sure that the people who recover are engaged in jobs and in independent living. We have a long way to travel in that direction, but that's what they're telling us, that we have to learn from them how to go about this. There the state is behind them, so that makes it a little bit easier. Here it's us. We have to do this, Don't leave me alone to do this. All right? Number 2, the relationship of physical and mental health. Huge. The cure, the soft services include your physical health. Exercise, diet, being a healthy individual physically will help you to overcome psychiatric illness. That's the message that I'm hearing. And so we have to, we can't be overweight. We can't have diabetes. We can't have a whole lot of other things. Certainly not at the age of 30 or 35, right? So we have to really look after our physical health, whether we have a psychiatric illness or not. But especially if we have a psychiatric illness, that is part of the cure. So conclusion number 2. Conclusion number 3, evolution of hope. Hope is, wonderful. And what is the evolution? What we used to do? So the simple formula, 3 points. Scott has given us 3 points. What we used to do was, we had an attitude, I will tell you this, do this. And we stopped doing that. And so then we said, no, that's not a good idea. So this is a better idea. I will support you. Better than I will tell you. But over a time we said, that's not good. That there's something wrong with this. So we then, where are we today? I will partner with you. So the whole, he's given you the formula for how to deal with hope. Become a partner. It changes our whole attitude. It changes the whole way we look at things. And the last thing, trust and learn from others. And this is what we are doing today. We're trying to learn from others. And what are we learning? We're not learning something that they've made up. We are learning something which is a global solution. The whole world is going to exercise this. What is relevant for the rest of the world is relevant for us, is relevant for America. But we're not going to stop there. And we will learn from one another. They say they have learned from us. We have learned a lot from them. But when they go away, they say, Pakistan taught us some things also. So I thank you all. For coming here, for being such a good audience and for learning, and I will seek your patience for a few more minutes because I think Shaheen has some concluding things to do.